Right. It is time to talk rentals, and boy, is this a hot topic in Cape Town right now, because the monthly rentals are just going up and up in the face of an acute shortage of available homes. And we are not going to talk about the reason why it is that way today. I think there have been a lot of conversations about that on other shows. Specifically, we want to take a look at some of the new rental practices that are emerging as a result of this high demand, low supply environment, and ask whether they are all entirely above board, which of them are fair and reasonable and which are not. So with us in studio, not only Wendy Knowler, our consumer journalist, and always lovely to have you with us, Wendy.
Thanks,
welcome. But also welcome back to another very familiar voice, our regular show commentator, Marlon Shevelew of Marlon Shevelew and Associates. He is the man we go to understand the legalities of the tenant-landlord relationship and the contracts that go with it. And we're really grateful to have you with us today as well, Marlon.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Pippa.
And hopefully we can identify which are actually dodgy practices and which are just something we have to deal with in the current context. So firstly, let me just repeat, if you are in this boat, if you are currently searching for a new long-term rental and you are being asked to supply almost a genetic sample before you are allowed in the door to look at a property, we would love to hear from you about your experiences. Send a WhatsApp to 072-567-1567. And I say that only slightly tongue-in-cheek, and you'll understand why by the end of this segment. Wendy, set the scene for us about why we're talking about this today.
Okay, with pleasure. So when it comes to rental property in Cape Town, it's been the case for some time now that, as you said, demand far exceeds supply, and that puts landlords and their rental agents in a very powerful position, seemingly more powerful every month if you're on social media and you're engaging with those stories. So while they, being the landlords and their rental agents, have a business and a legal obligation in some cases to protect themselves from tenants who won't pay either in full or at all, and won't take appropriate care of the property, and they are out there. The question we're asking today is whether some of them are going too far in terms of what they're expecting from wannabe tenants. So among the issues we're going to be looking at are hefty application fees, excessive personal info vetting before a potential tenant even views a property, excessive deposit requests, and that includes even a cleaning fee. Well, it was a cleaning fee that became a deposit when I took up the case, being asked of successful tenants before they move in, on top of 2 months rental as the deposit.
So on top of the deposit, a cleaning fee for a flat you haven't even moved into.
It was a
yet.
cleaning fee in the correspondence that the complainant gave to us, but when I queried it, they said, oh, no, it's not a fee, it's a deposit, but it clearly says in the letter they sent out, it's a fee. Okay. But either way, not good.
We'll talk about that one a little bit later on. Okay, so needless to say, quite a number of case studies here, and Marlon, great to have you with us to take a closer look at them. So let's start with that cleaning fee, because that's the one that really to me sounded like something that jumped off an Airbnb page and landed in a tenancy agreement that it wasn't meant to be swimming in. What was that all about? Set the context.
Okay. Gavin Kleinek emailed me. He'd been helping his daughter and her friend find an apartment in Cape Town. That's the other thing. You can only view in that in business hours, and these two young women were working. So he shared with me a letter that he received from rental agency Watch Props, maintenance support team, which he got with an application form. It reads, to qualify, your net monthly income after deductions must be at least 3 times the monthly rental amount. So they're putting that out there just before you even start. Don't bother.
Yeah.
And then if your application is successful, the following fees will be payable within 48 hours of approval. A double deposit, so that's become the norm, as being 2 months rent. A lease fee of 1,550 Rand. That we could ask Marlon about, but it didn't bother me too much. A non-refundable application processing fee of 690 Rand, that's almost 700, of course, per applicant. So if there are 2 of you, that's double. And then the one that really leapt out at me, cleaning fee, 1,000 Rand. As Gavin said to me, having discussed this issue with my daughter and her friends, all of whom are young professionals looking for accommodation in and around Cape Town, the following point came up. Why apply the processing fee to every single applicant? Logic says to shortlist the applicants to say 3 of them and then do the processing. And the cleaning fee on top of the deposit is ridiculous. That was Gavin.
That was Gavin's view. I'm interested to know what Marlon thinks. Is that ridiculous? I mean, my gut instinct is surely an incoming tenant should not be liable to pay to receive a clean unit. It's the bare minimum they should expect.
No, absolutely. It's, I mean, I don't want to call it a fee creep. I've actually got a different word for it, but radio will preclude me from saying that. The cold fact is when you take occupation of a property, it's got to be in a fit condition. It's got to be viable for occupation, and invariably that means it should be clean.
Yeah.
Come the end of the lease agreement, there's an obligation on you at your cost to ensure the property is restored to the condition. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
and if you don't do it, they
deduct it from your deposit.
Deduct it from the deposit. Yeah.
I think it's the phraseology of that cleaning fee to tell you that if they were clever, they would have worked it into the lease fee and just kept portion of it towards the cleaning.
Costs, yeah.
But to actually put it out there is a bit overreaching in my view. It's not correct, and it's basically punishing you for wanting a property that should be provided in that condition. It just doesn't sit well with me at all.
Doesn't sit well. Okay. Wendy, you took it up with WatchProp. You sent them a media query asking them about that cleaning fee, but also about that the processing fee, the application processing fee.
I didn't specifically ask about the rest. I was zoning in on the cleaning fee, but Director Andre Augustin responded and did include that. He said the fee is a cost recovery charge. Sorry, he's talking specifically about the cleaning fee initially. It's a cost recovery charge with a comprehensive due diligence this is the application fee. The due diligence we conduct on every applicant to protect the interests of property owners. It's not solely for the TPN credit check. The fee covers the full suite of verification processes which are labour intensive and essential for responsible leasing. So he says there's the TPN check, and then on top of that, document verification, manually scrutinising the bank statements, pay slips, etc. for authenticity, employment verification, contacting the employments, and rental history verification, contacting the previous and current landlords to find out how they were as tenants, basically. And that is part of the fee, though. You would think that they're taking from the landlord.
I was just going to say, isn't that what the landlord pays the agent for?
Absolutely. There's no legal connection between a tenant or an applicant and an agent. The legal relationship is between the agent and the landlord and the tenant. And to levy these fees onto a tenant who is yet to take occupation, the landlord mandates the agent to procure a tenant or to manage a property. If they're procuring, they're getting about 8 to 10% of the entire lease fee. If they're managing, they're getting every single month between 8 and 10%. And yet there is a fee now being levied to the tenant, for the scrutinizing. And also, how far do you go before you are a formal applicant? I mean, that's going to be one of the questions we deal with. So it does seem a bit of a fee creep. And also, I don't know on what basis any agent can look to a tenant for that fee unless there is an agreement signed by them which gives them that power, because usually there's no agreement between an agent and a tenant.
Sorry, Wendy. The bottom line to me is they are being paid twice to do the same thing. If they are charging the tenant to vet the tenant, the landlord has already paid. They are taking a cut to vet the tenant and provide a decent tenant. So they're being paid for the same thing twice, effectively.
If I'm a landlord and I pay an agent to procure a tenant for me, I pay them a fee. The procurement fee is a large fee because it's a percentage of the entire lease. It could be 24 months. Sure. And invariably that means you manage the property or you find the tenant, you do your due diligence. It's part of your job. It's not a fee that you should be able to seek beyond anyone other than your own client, your principal. So it goes a bit too far in my view.
So that was the
and also,
vetting.
just to say, they also have to comply with the extensive data protection protocols in terms of the POPI Act, in terms of they're getting all this information from these wannabe tenants, and they have an obligation to follow steps A to Z on what they have to do. And then about the cleaning deposit.
Okay, so on that note, Sharon has messaged immediately to say surely the cleaning fee is for the end of the tenancy. But this was being, the way it was described, it was being asked up front at the beginning of the tenancy.
Within 48 hours of being told that you're a successful applicant. Okay, so he said, this is WatchProp's director.
Andre Augustin.
Yes, he says, we believe that there's a misunderstanding regarding this charge. This is not a fee paid to receive a clean unit. It is a fully refundable deposit held in an interest-bearing account as required by law. The purpose is it serves as a specific incentive for the tenant to maintain the property in good order throughout the tenancy and to return it in a clean and acceptable condition at the end of the lease. It is separate from and in addition to the standard damage deposit. It's not a damage deposit. It's about clean as the flat being left or whatever
in the condition it was received.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is only utilised if the property requires professional cleaning beyond that standard at the end of the tenancy. This structure encourages a cooperative handover and reduces end-of-lease dispute.
Let me just jump in here. They call it a damages deposit because if there is damages at the end of the lease, you can use that deposit unless there's fair wear and tear. But it's actually a security deposit, and it caters not just for damages. It also caters for arrear rentals or any other breaches that have manifested themselves. You obviously can't touch the deposit during the lease agreement, but come the outgoing inspection, that's when you can start using it. So to have an extra sort of tautologist, it's you're charging an extra, you're saying the same thing. It's, ensure the property is returned to the way it was at inception, except for fair wear and tear. But in that instance, you've got that deposit already. You've got a double rental deposit.
Yeah. 2 months rental.
2 months rental.
So you've more than got enough to
More than
cover
enough.
that. Yeah. So Wendy, you did go back to them, and you also pointed out that the way it was phrased in what was communicated to the potential tenant was very different from what he just described.
I saw the actual email, so it wasn't Gavin misremembering. It's called, it says 1,000 Rand cleaning fee. That's it. No fully refundable deposit, So I said just that, and I said this is how it will be understood as a fee. That's not refundable. It's a fee to get a clean apartment. Yeah. Secondly, I said a double monthly rental deposit already exists to secure the tenant's obligation at the end of the lease, including cleaning beyond fair wear and tear. And I have many people who complain to me about all the deductions that are made on their deposits because they're expecting X amount back for their next rental and often, even at the slightest thing in some cases, they've cleaned, but it's not good enough. And then they'll slap on 500 Rand or something for additional cleaning. So this is what happens.
Common practice,
yeah. Anyway, I said that extra deposit for cleaning does not appear to be fair, reasonable, or proportionate. Anyway, so responding, he said, we recognize your point. We cannot speculate. And I said, do you think are you certain that the Rental Housing Tribunal would approve of a compulsory extra deposit over and above a double rental deposit? And he said, we can't speculate about what the tribunal would consider fair. He said, I'll discuss your feedback, and he knew it was from Marlon, with our specialist property law attorney. We'll seek their formal opinion on its alignment with current legislation. And I realized earlier this week that he hadn't got back to me, so I went back to him. And he said, asking if that deposit for cleaning still existed. And he said, no, we scrapped it. We originally merged with another rental agency where this cleaning deposit was adopted and as done by them for over many years, but now only the normal deposit applies. So I will take that as a win, and well done to them for conceding that perhaps it was a bit problematic.
Okay, and for removing it. So, and well done, most importantly, to Gavin for raising awareness of this fact and challenging it.
Very much wanted him to come and join us today, and he was keen, but he had work commitments. Otherwise, he'd be with us today.
But Gavin, thank you for taking it up and for challenging it, so that we can air it here and make sure that others know. Please to push back if you see that appearing. The habit of asking for application fees from every single person coming to view a property, is that fair?
No, it can't possibly be fair. It's not the intention to enrich the agency. Because of the high demand, you might have a fortune of applicants looking at a property, potential viewers, 100 people coming, and they take hypothetically 600 Rand per person, and they come back and say, well, only 10 of you have made the shortlist. The issue for me is the non-refundability of the application. It's like you are paying us to have an entitlement to view the property. It doesn't mean we are allowing you to have it. Doesn't mean your application is going to be successful. Even if it is, you're still not getting your application fee back. But for viewing, that's
the norm, from what I can tell. It's become the norm, and the properties are in such short supply so people pay it. They're desperate, and I think that's what's led to these kinds of practices, because the agencies know that people are desperate. And so you don't want to do anything. You don't want to push back. You don't want to do anything. And so you pay the money. And I remember we took up a case where the person asked for at least their TPN report. And then it emerged that they hadn't actually got
even drawn one,
and so they refunded her that portion. But that portion's also it's not the exact amount the agents are charged. It's not very much what the agents are charged, and then of course they bulk it up with it. So that's the thing, Marlon. Though people, it's all very well to say you should do this or push back, but people really don't want to, because everybody's, not everyone, but it seems these practices have become quite widespread. And so they're never going to get a property if they start pushing back about that. You don't want to pay the application fee, fine.
There are 99 more people in the queue who will.
Yeah.
And the problem is that if you consent to it, effectively you're agreeing to that. And even though it's minimal, if you magnified over how many people are viewing the property, it can be a very profitable show day for an agent. I'm saying all agents do this, and if they had to say, listen, in the event that you are successful, that application fee will be deducted from your first month's rental or something along those lines. But just to view the property where there's no potential for you to get it, but the converse argument is, well, if you're going to come view and waste our time, not that I don't know why anyone would go and do that, but they're trying to cover themselves. But I do not think it's justifiable for an application perspective if you are now recognized as a potential applicant, completing forms in that regard, but just going to view, again, it seems like a money-making creep for me.
Strange cleaning fee, and we were also looking at the issue of the application fees being charged before getting access to a property, even to view it. The next thing we want to look at is the collection of what seems like excessive amounts of personal data very, very early on in the process. So the question of a potential tenant being asked to hand over a huge amount of personal information even before they have set foot on the property and said, yes, I would like to rent it. Wendy, what made you aware of this issue?
Well, it was a TikTok video, I have to say. It was posted by Lwando of Gqeberha, and she was sharing her experience of responding to an advert for a property to rent, and she held up the form that she was asked to fill in to the camera, so I was able to screenshot it, and I thought, this doesn't sound right, because she was like the outrage. I was asked for salary slips, bank statements, everything, and it's all there on the form. So, and also for me, it's a fraudster starter kit, all of that. I mean, just before you even get to view the property, and how are they safeguarding that all that information? So again, I asked for Marlon's opinion before I took up a media query with the agency involved, and his answer was unjustified, dangerous, and very, very concerning. Do you remember that,
shaking
Marlon?
your head, Marlon. Yeah.
Well, it turned out to be quite a complicated case, and one that I had to go back. I think I had 3 or 4 rounds of questioning. It was beginning to wear me down in the end, but yeah, my query was. Sorry, I'm trying to find my place in my notes. I essentially said...
we went here it was a company in Port Elizabeth in this case.
Yes, it was called...
NRG Rentals.
Yes, NRG Rentals. And their director, James Conyers, responded. He gave me a detailed rundown of why it was appropriate to ask for all that information. It was legally required, it was justified, etc. She said we're governed by both POPIA and FICA, and we have to, vetting the client is a cornerstone of professional practice. And I got all that. I grew up in a family of rental property, so I really understand this issue of the risk that that renting a property out, and we've done the story of tenants that are actually squatters in disguise and
who didn't pay, etc.
I mean, Marlon was involved with that as well, so I understand this fully. But all of that justification appeared in the response to apply to as when a successful applicant was now. Got past the viewing stage and whatever, and then as a further vetting after the viewing stage, being asked to supply us information.
So just to be clear, in this case, it was being asked for way before then. So
that's
in order
what the allegation was.
To even come and view the property, you had to submit salary slips and things like that. Yes,
I remember the applicant was on her video was holding up the tenant application form, which for me, she hadn't even got to see the property. Why is she being asked to fill in a full tenant application form and supply all the information that goes along with it? So I said, kind of the answer missed the point, that this was at, if even the first gate, before you want to view, you have to give us all this information. So then the response number 2 was, oh no, they gave her that form, but actually she was only asked for a copy of her ID. I am simplifying, as I say, 4 to and fro's on this.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, so is it the case that the prospective tenant was sent a tenant application form instead of a pre-viewing form and then told she only had to fill in the basic info? If so, one can see how the wrong impression could have been created. And the company said, yes, we can see that there was room for misinterpretation, and so to prevent any future ambiguity, the company has since refined its documentation and implemented standard communication protocols. These measures ensure that all parties receive clear, consistent instructions, thereby streamlining the process and safeguarding against misunderstanding. So they kind of created the problem by saying, well, we didn't ask her for all of that, but it was on the form.
Okay.
And so you can see how they should never have been sending someone who's made one first inquiry saying, I'd like to view, and then being sent a tenant application form. That's not going to land well.
I mean, Marlon, would you like to just expound a bit further here on your view on this? Because, again, and I think in fairness, as Wendy's pointed out, everybody understands you need to vet a tenant before you put them into their property. Obviously, it is the agent's duty to make sure that the person that they are procuring as a tenant can afford the rent, is going to be able to pay on time. But to do that for every one of the 100 people lining up to take a look at the place before they've even put their foot through the door seems excessive.
Especially if they're being charged a fee for that as well. But that's besides the point. Look, verify who the person is, their ID. And, you can do a bit of a search on their ID. Very, very simple to do. See if they've got judgments against their name. You can do a lot with an identity. But if the viewing gains interest and there is an intention on the part of the potential tenant to get their property, that's when you ask for the financials. Yeah. That's when you deal with the affordability. I mean, the affordability otherwise is inconsequential, because first you've got to get through the door and decide you like it. To ask those questions before there's a form filled in, I mean, it's very precipitous. I think that's the word I'm looking at. It's not necessary, and I think it's excessive, and it goes beyond Poppy, because Poppy is minimalistic. It's information needed for a specific purpose. To ask all that information, even if it's going to be ring-fenced and kept aside, these are people who may never put in an application at all, and yet their data is out there.
And also for me, because as somebody that hears from a lot of people who've been scammed, how easy is it for a scammer? You're not having to provide anything. You don't even have to have a property. You can pretend to have a property and say to the person, well, number one, you can make them pay a fee, so that's nice. And then you can say, we need all this information. We need your bank slips. We need your salary advice. That is an impersonation kit. They have got you, and they can go on and commit all sorts of if they don't look after that information, not to say that every rental agent is trying to be a fraudster, but if they don't look after that information properly and somebody else gets their hands on it, so the thing is,
in the company archive or whatever it may be.
If legitimate agencies start requiring that level of information and documentary proof just to view a property, it's really playing into the hands of fraudsters, because how would you know that that's a scammer instead of the real agency?
Yeah. And you've handed over everything. The keys to the kingdom.
Absolutely.
Your ID number, your place of work, your salary. They can use that information to confirm.
Open accounts, get loans.
So much in your name. So it's something to be extremely cautious about for very good reason. Now, Josie's just commenting on WhatsApp. I'm wondering if the security concerns and the issues of people not honouring a viewing appointment might be playing a role. Is the viewing fee being asked for by some agents perhaps a way to weed out people who might not arrive or who are potentially just scouting the property for theft purposes?
Look, that is
valid.
Yeah, and that is the converse argument. I just think the way it's phrased needs to be done very carefully, saying, listen, this is a fee that for you to come and show that you are genuine about wanting to view this property, but it will be refunded if you do come view the property. Pay up front and you don't come, we will absorb that amount for wasting our time. A lot of agents, and I deal with agents every single day, feel quite marginalized by the fact that they wait for somebody to come to a showing and they make themselves available and make the property look nice. But as I say, if you want to do it properly, say, listen, that amount will be refunded upon your successful viewing of the property. But it can't be utilized as an enrichment technique.
Okay.
But I do understand that. It's a very fair question, that, because, lawyers, we're waiting for somebody to come to the consultation. You don't come, do we send you a bill? Do we not send you a bill? We've lost the ability to bill somebody else during that time. We can justify it. So can an agent. Time is precious, and I don't think people realize how valuable agents are.
But another counter to that is that there are so many people, even if half of them don't show up, there's going to be, you wouldn't have had to have any expenditure other than looking at their ID and whatever. So it's a difficult one to find.
There is a counter argument
balance.
there. Yeah. It's not like it's that there wasn't anything else you could. This is different from the lawyer who is sitting in their office waiting for a client to arrive.
Yeah.
You've got a line of potential tenants out the door waiting to view. That is different. It's not everybody. And thank you, Butterfly, saying the rental agency I'm with presently only charges the application fee if one is successful.
Yeah,
which
that would seem
Marlon is nodding,
sense.
saying,
Yes.
"Yep, that's the way to do it." So that's the fair way. Okay, what else have we got here on the WhatsApp line? 072 567 1567 is the number to send a WhatsApp to. We've got a voice note that has come through from Stuart, I think, raising another one, a feed that has crept in that he wants to get a view on whether it's fair or not. So maybe let's take a listen to that before we go to the next case study you've brought, Wendy.
Hi, Pippa. Stuart from Deep River here. I think the extraneous information from rental agents, and thankfully I'm out of renting now, I own my own property, but extends just beyond application and into lease renewals. At some point during COVID, I remember my lease renewal went from 1 page to a 16-page renewal process.
Sure.
And it's just completely not understandable why. Like, unless something's changed and that requires extra information, like, why can it not just be, I agree to X, Y, and Z, 1 page, signed, done?
Well, I can jump in there. Firstly, oftentimes people don't want to renew, they want a brand new lease, especially if the lease has reached its maximum of 24 months as per the CPA. But also, the nature of the tenant can change during the lease period. You might have to vet them again. Their job might change, especially during COVID where people were losing their jobs left, right and centre. I don't know why I would need a 16-page renewal, but certainly another vetting process. Obviously, that would be the cost to be borne by hopefully the landlord. But COVID was a very strange time, so it's not a good example. But if you are presented with a renewal now, it should simply be an addendum. In fact, in a lease agreement, it says there can't be any changes to the lease agreement unless it's reduced to writing and signed between the parties. That's what an addendum is. It's a renewal, it's a further lease in writing and signed between the parties. 16 pages would indicate it being a new lease. I can't believe an addendum or a renewal would be the same length as a lease agreement.
Okay. Thanks, Stuart, for your voice note. All right, Wendy, another issue cropped up just this morning on X, and you've directed this one to Marlon as well. Won't you tell us what you saw on X?
Okay, so somebody asked me on X, "Hi, Wendy, is it legal for a landlord to demand that you pay 1 year's rent up front?" So when I first read that, I thought, going in, who was going to do that? And then it turns out it's an existing tenant. She says there's a landlord in Cape Town who told her tenants this month that they need to pay a year's rent or vacate by the end of the month.
Wow.
Go, Marlon.
How much time do we have? No. So firstly, if it was a brand new lease, nothing wrong with that. If you want to pay a year up front, fantastic. There might be a financial benefit to paying a year up front. How that's going to benefit you with the rental sitting in your landlord's account is beyond me. But if it's during the currency of the lease, we all know there can't be any changes to the lease until it's in writing and signed between the parties, not dissimilar to the previous situation. But the fact is that the only way to threaten someone to vacate the property if they don't pay is a complete unfair rental practice. In fact, the bylaws which are promulgated in terms of the Rental Housing Act, Regulation 9, says a landlord may not engage in oppressive or unconscionable conduct towards the tenant. 9.1d of the Unfair Practice Regulations promulgated in the Western Cape in terms of the Rental Housing Act. But in addition to that, it's an unfair, unreasonable and unjust term. It's extortive. I mean, suddenly from paying month to month, you suddenly have to pay an entire year up front with interest to benefit the landlord, because it's not sitting in a trust account or a bank account to benefit you. And if you don't pay, you have to leave. In any event, the only way to terminate a lease in terms of the Consumer Protection Act, if it's in the landlord's ordinary course of business, is to give 20 business days to remedy a breach. There is no breach here. It's an extortive demand, and if you don't pay a full year up front, who has that liquidity? I do not know. You must vacate at the end of the month. Wow.
But I mean, it is true that a landlord can give a month's notice.
If it's month to month, absolutely.
If it's month to month. So she doesn't. We're not clear. I did ask her a qualifying question and didn't get
I
an
would
answer.
assume it was a fixed term lease, but if it's a month to month,
then they can do that.
They can give you a month's notice to pay a year up front. Otherwise, you must pay.
But and there's nothing you can do legally.
No, I mean, unless he can justify that somebody else would do that. If he's doing that for the purpose of getting you out the property, being that extortive, that's like a simulated transaction. That is something you could take to task. It's like saying, I'm raising the rental by 1,000%, you don't like it, you can leave, and then you don't lease it out for that 1,000%. You
back at the original.
If it's intended to get you out of the property, it's not dissimilar to a procedural eviction, is it not?
Okay.
Without following the PI Act.
Yeah. Marlon, you mentioned the kinds of fees that rental agents charge and how they are compensated for their work. Lindy, asking, I've missed it, but please repeat the standard acceptable lease agent fees. Is it standardized? Does anybody set them?
Nobody sets them. It's become more of a custom.
Okay.
So there's the application fee, there's the searching TPN or one of their other companies, pay a prop, we connect you. There's ways of doing screening for those tenants, but it's usually, and there's an admin fee as well. People charge an admin fee every month just to collect your money. I've seen many different things, but then again, I've seen pet deposits, a separate deposit to cater for damages by a pet. Cleaning deposit, obviously, we've seen as well. One particular agency I won't talk about because I actually do work for them has a list of fees which are payable up front or which are automatically deductible before they even get to damages to the property. So you're never going to get your full deposit back, even if you return the property in spick and span condition.
Sure.
So, yeah, but I do believe that the application fee and admin fee, the problem is, though, are those fees actually being paid by the landlord? If you're seeking it from the tenant, you need to be able to show that you've billed your landlord that amount. It can't just be payable by the tenant
really
and put into the agency's
that.
pocket. Yeah. Got to be a quid pro quo.
So here's the $1 million question from someone saying, I, as the tenant, only interact with the agent. I have no access to the agreements between the owner and the agent. If I push back and say I won't pay these fees, my application won't be considered. It's that simple. So what can we do?
That's what my point.
Yeah.
It's impractical.
I've got a horrible answer for that. It's opportunity cost. What is the cost going to be, and is it worth losing the potential property? Because over the year, you're going to have enjoyment of the property, your children being school close to it, you've got a secure complex. Based on a minimalistic amount of 700 Rand, is it really worth it? But if you look at it, it doesn't make it fair. But if you've got 100 people paying 700 Rand and only one person gets it because only one person is getting the lease agreement, your exposure is 700 Rand. It reminds me of a joke. If we've got time, where a person wanted to sell a certain donkey and he was going to deliver the donkey for 2,000 Rand to a particular person. And what happened was that the donkey died en route. And he said, I've still made 4,000 Rand for the donkey because I said, I'm selling a donkey. It's 2 Rand a ticket and 2,000 people bought tickets. And the guy said, but what about the person who won that raffle with 2 Rand and got the donkey and the donkey was dead? He said, I just gave him his 2 Rand back. So it's a similar kind of logic that it's, I'm digging in here, I'm getting all this money. And, if you're not happy, those who complain, I'll refund if need be. But they're making a packet if that's the practice they're following.
Sure. Wendy, any final thoughts before we must wrap up? I think we've only got a minute or two left, but we must also just mention the issue of the fact that it's not only about fees that legitimate rental agents are asking for, it's about the scam artists who are taking advantage of people's desperation in this market.
Yeah, so I saw this on a Facebook group in December. The woman wrote, I'm currently trying to find a 1-bedroom, fully furnished spot in Cape Town for me while I look for a more permanent home for me and my kids. Doing this from Joburg has been difficult to say the least. So when a gorgeous little place in Gardens popped up, good price, great area, looked perfect, I jumped. The listing was through a company called Infinity Investments, which was most likely a cloned profile company. The agent wanted me to pay 50% to secure the place. So I asked to speak to the owner to get clarity. A man who said he was Turkish, apparently based in Cape Town. And you're not going to disbelieve, and strange accents. Cape Town's full of foreigners. We know this. He got in touch. He said, I can pay 1,500 Rand as a small holding fee. So I paid it. This morning when I tried to arrange a viewing, I got this message. It's a scam. We're Nigerian. Sorry. Start fresh, girl.
Wow. The audacity of it.
She says, I can't explain the sinking feeling, and I consider myself careful. And still, those little red flags slip through in the rush to sort life out, and especially if you're desperate for property. She said, payment to a cell phone number, red flag. Pressure to pay quickly because other people are also interested. Although that second one is not a red flag anymore because
there are other people
in
interested.
reality,
Yeah.
yes.
Sure.
You know, there's a big thing about landlords vetting tenants. What about tenants vetting landlords? And I always say that agents lease out a property to a tenant on their landlord's instruction. They must vet the landlord to determine that is the property owner.
Yeah,
Sure.
in this case
Yeah.
it was straight out scam, but yes,
That's a fair
protect
point
your
as
would-be
well.
Goes both
tenants
ways.
with a good agency.
Marlon, thanks as always for weighing in on the legal perspective here. And Wendy, thanks. A very, very pertinent topic in Cape Town right now and an important one to raise. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
Pippa.